as of course to the GDP, is at 14%. By the end of this year, it should be at 16%. By the end of his term, it will hit a record high of 22%. This even, of course, as MPs have been told to shoot down the bill on the floor of the House. But on this other side, Treasury is lamenting massive revenue shortfalls to a tune of 300 billion Kenyan shillings for this financial year alone. In fact, according to the Treasury PS Chris Kipto, in the last 1 week, the government has used over 100 billion to repay the debt. And that's why they're looking at ways that at least they will avert borrowing. That is by increasing taxes. He, however, hints that come the next financial year, government services will hike. For you to access government services, it will be more and more fees. For instance, passport, IDs, etc. What is your view? It is a discussion that we'll be having this morning with my key guest in studio. That is Honorable Amos Mwago, Starehe Member of Parliament, Honorable Frederick Ikana. He is the Shinyalu Member of Parliament, and as well from Nandi Hills, Honorable Bernard Kitur. We'll also be touching about the conversation around one man, one vote, 1 shilling that is now being championed for by the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who is also under fire. In fact, you will see how much he's seeking on our dailies this morning. That is what has been splashed. Even as tomorrow, there is, being on a Friday, there is the Limuru 3 meeting that brings together more than 30 political parties in the mountain region together to chart their way forward. Social, political, and economic conversation is what will dominate that particular meeting that has been, arranged by, among others, Jeremiah Kioni, who's the Jubilee SG, Martha Karua, of course, part of those who have just organized that particular meeting, as well the former Laikipia Governor Nderitu Mureithi. All those updates will be right here on K24 TV. But remember, they will form also part of a discussion this morning, and you can engage in this conversation via social media platforms at K24 TV, at Joel Chacha, as well as SMS and WhatsApp numbers on the bottom of your screens. But let's begin with the newspaper review. People Daily, Kenya's #1 free newspaper, splashes this morning of the Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, who is seeking 2.6 billion for luxury. DP wants cash for repair of his current residence, Harambee Annex Office, purchase of cars, medals, honors, insignia, and even confidential expenditure. This is a new one. Of course, this being on page 4, remember this comes at a time that Kenyans are decrying already heavy taxation with the Finance Bill 2024 now in the conversation or in the picture. Masimwai writes for the People Daily. She says that lawmakers have questioned the proposed expenditure for the office of the official residence of the Deputy President, calling them expensive in the context of Kenya's budget constraints. Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is seeking 2.62 billion Kenyan shillings in the 2024-2025 financial year. That is the next financial year beginning July this year, to refurbish his Harambee Annex Office and current residence, as well as to cover up other essential expenses in his office. Of the 2.62 billion Kenyan shillings, just to break it down, 600 million is for refurbishing the current residence. Imagine, 600 million can actually build a new home. But this is for refurbishing the current residence. 460 million Kenyan shillings for the Harambee House office. This is also refurbishing. 800 million Kenyan shillings expenditure that was not specified. This is according to documents that were tabled before the MPs. The other expenses include implementation of an alcohol, drug and substance abuse program amounting to 250 million Kenya shillings. Remember, we still have NACADA, and these probably should follow or should fall under that particular, of course, drugs control agency. purchase of medals, honors and insignia will be 250 million Kenya shillings. Just imagine with this economy. And purchasing motor vehicles will be 200 million Kenya shillings. Now, lifts not working. Members of the Committee on Administration of Internal Security, chaired by the Narok West Member of Parliament Gabriel Tongoyo, was scrutinizing the budget estimates. Tongoyo sought more details about the 460 million meant for renovation at the Deputy President's office. But in his submissions to the committee, Patrick Mwangi is the principal administration, of course, a secretary in the office of the DP, explained that the offices needed to be refurbished because they are old. And he added that in the financial year 2024-2025, estimates in the office actually has an allocation of 300 million under the development vote. Other notable proposed expenditures in the DP's office include 247 million Kenya shillings for catering services. These are just receptions, actually. Accommodation, gifts, mark these, gifts, food and drinks will be 301 million for boards, committees, conferences and seminars, even as 2 million Kenya shillings will go in purchasing staff uniform and clothing for trainees. This is the second in command's budget estimates for the next financial year. Now, medals and insignia, on the 250 million meant to buy medals, honors and insignia, Mwangi was pressed to explain why the office was spending such large sum money at a time Kenyans are suffering because of the economy. And he responded that they had not issued awards for some time and numbers of designated recipients keep increasing. He also explained that the move followed the Executive Number Order 2 of 2023 on reorganizing the government's mandate of the Office of the DP to coordinate the conference or the conferment of medals and awards through the national and national county, of course, government advisory committee in line with the National Honours Act of 2023. He added that the president has honored Kenyans during the national celebrations based on the recommendations of course, the National and County Government's Advisory Committee. Well, these are monies that are set to be spent by the DP himself. Other expenditures include 17 million Kenya shillings for international news services. 17 million Kenya shillings, mark these, for international news services. 205 million in entertainment allowance. 33 million Kenya shillings for transport allowance, 205 million Kenya shillings for house allowance, 22 million Kenya shillings for overtime for the civil service, 5 million Kenya shillings for domestic servant allowance. Also, there is a 328.5 million Kenya shillings for personal allowance. In addition, that is actually 5.2 million Kenya shillings for gas, 31 million Kenya shillings for telephone service. This also, there is some 10 million Kenya shillings for internet connections. Well, travel costs, remember they had promised to cut down on that. The budget has also included travel costs for air, bus and rail travel at a whopping 163 million Kenya shillings and even a mileage allowance of 171 million Kenya shillings. Now, accommodation for domestic travel is up to a tune of 91.7 million Kenya shillings. Sundry items such as airport tax and taxis, 5.7 million Kenya shillings. Domestic travel and subsistence and other transportation costs amount to a total of 343 million Kenya shillings. Remember, these are budget estimates for the DP himself. This is what he believes when given, he will work confidently, perfectly as the second in command. Others are actually accommodations of 93 million Kenya shillings, state visit abroad of 15 million Kenya shillings. These are just to mention about a few, even as he seeks to get an additional 200 million Kenya shillings for buying vehicles. He explained that the money is needed for activities under the Dorcas Gachagwas, following concerns from members that the office had received a double allocation, both in the second supplementary estimates and in the main budget. This is what Kenyans are waking up to. People Daily highlighting that in details. Grab your copy, but remember you can also download an e-paper. That is via www.epaper.pd.co.ke. Just to peruse it further. But also on the People Daily this morning is on Kalonzo, that is the co-principal in Azimio, or the Wiper Party leader, saying we'll return to the streets of NADCO. Threats, of course, to stage demonstrations, and as well on the finance bill. Also on the People Daily, Kenya's new envoy to Russia under probe for corruption. That is Mathuki on the spot over his conduct as the head of EAC Secretariat. Allegations of irregular interest, recruitment of friends, victimization of staff, and faking travel expenses. This is what is on the People Daily this morning. Quickly, let's peruse the Daily Nation. Budget, no money for school feeding. Thus, the Ministry of Education has appealed to MPs to reinstate funding for program where millions of learners from poor families in some 26 counties risk dropping out of school starting in July after the Kenya Kwanza government, which promised to double beneficiaries of the free meals scheme, withdrew funding for the program that has helped to boost enrollment and class and attendance. And of course, there is a funding gap there of 4.9 billion Kenya shillings. Remember, Gachagwa's office needs about 2.6 billion just for few individuals, whereas 4.9 could go a long way to help feed, of course, school-going children across the country. And the allocation that has been given is zero. Primary school special needs education, zero. Junior school special needs education, zero, whereas they need 622 million Kenya shillings and 453 million Kenya shillings respectively. Also, key to note, similar to the People Daily, on the Daily Nation, but Gachagwa's office gets 2.6 billion for renovation and cars. I've just actually broken down how that has been arrived at. That is what is on the Daily Nation this morning. Let's take a look at the Star newspaper. Big split in Mount Kenya as Karua leads Limuru 3. UDA stalwarts led by DP Gachagua have dismissed meeting as scheme to divide the community. These will also be touching on it, even as conversations are there as well, around the 1 man, 1 vote, 1 shilling conversation. That will be